The story begins in a luxurious bank office. The glass windows stretch high above the city skyline. A woman in an elegant suit sits behind a mahogany desk. Her face is calm, but her eyes hide deep pain. On the wall hangs a plaque, Branch Manager of the Year. She stares at it, her hands trembling. Tears roll down silently as she whispers. "They think I won, but if only they knew what I lost to sit in this chair." Suddenly, a flashback pulls us into her past. Back to where it all began. You are watching Nightfall Tales by Wura, where every story touches the soul and leaves you thinking long after the screen fades. Adiz was born in a small town where survival was tough and opportunities were few. Her father, a retired civil servant, always said, "Education is your ticket out of poverty, my daughter." Her mother, a trader who sold Gary at the village market, often encouraged her with warm hugs, saying, "One day, you will stand where I never stood." From childhood, Adiz's dream was clear, to work in a bank. To her, bankers were the very definition of success. Their neat suits, their calm confidence, and the way they commanded respect whenever they visited the market to deposit money, it inspired her. She studied hard. Nights when the lantern burned dim, she pressed on. Days when hunger pinched her stomach, she still read under the mango tree. Against all odds, she graduated with a degree in banking and finance from the University of Lagos. After NYSC, luck smiled on her. She got an entry-level job at Unity Trust Bank, one of the biggest banks in the country. For Adiz, it was the beginning of a dream fulfilled. Her first day at the bank was unforgettable. She wore her only pair of high heels, her suit freshly ironed though a little faded. She stood in front of the massive glass building, staring at the logo gleaming in the sun. Her heart pounded with excitement. Inside, everything felt like another world, the smell of polished floors, the sound of counting machines, the polite greetings, and the endless files stacked neatly. It was a place of order, wealth, and promise. But Adiz didn't know that behind the polished glass and shiny floors, there were dark corridors of secrets, and those secrets would one day test her in ways she never imagined. At the bank, Adiz quickly became known as the hard-working girl. She was the first to arrive every morning and the last to leave at night. She exceeded her daily targets, winning the admiration of her colleagues. But soon, she began to notice something strange. Her male colleagues, some lazier, some less qualified, were being promoted faster. She watched as Tund, who often spent hours chatting instead of working, was suddenly made a senior officer. Another colleague, Beezy, who joined the same year as her, jumped 2 levels ahead within months. Confused, Adiz asked her closest colleague, Chioma, "Why does it seem like promotions don't follow hard work here?" Chioma gave her a long, sad look and whispered, "This bank is not only about numbers, my dear. Sometimes, it's about the kind of sacrifices you're willing to make." Adiz didn't fully understand until the branch manager, Mr. Okoro, called her into his office one evening. "Miss Adiz," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "your performance is excellent. The management has noticed you. With the right commitment, I can push your name for the next promotion list." Adiz's heart leapt with excitement. "Thank you, sir," she replied eagerly. But then Mr. Okoro's smile shifted. His eyes scanned her from head to toe in a way that made her skin crawl. He leaned closer and said in a low voice, "Of course, promotion doesn't come free. You know what I mean." Her world stopped. She forced a nervous smile, pretending not to understand. "Sir, I'll keep working hard." But as she walked out of his office, her legs shook. She now understood what Chioma meant. And she realized, the real test of her career had just begun. From that day on, Adiz noticed subtle changes. Mr. Okoro would accidentally brush her arm during meetings. He would send her text messages at night, "Hope you're thinking about what we discussed. Your future is in your hands." She ignored them, but the pressure grew. One morning, during a staff meeting, promotions were announced. Her heart raced, surely her hard work would be rewarded this time. But when the list was read, her name was missing. Instead, Beezy, who was often seen going into Mr. Okoro's office after hours, was promoted again. Adiz's chest tightened. She had broken records, brought in more clients than anyone, and yet, she was invisible. That night, she cried alone in her small apartment. She remembered her parents' sacrifices, the loans they took for her education, their pride in her achievements. How could she tell them that in the bank world, hard work wasn't enough? But Adiz wasn't ready to give up. She told herself, if I keep working harder than everyone else, one day they'll have no choice but to promote me. She didn't know, the higher she climbed, the darker the offers would become. Weeks turned into months, but Adiz refused to bend. She poured herself into work, chasing clients, closing deals, hitting impossible targets. Her name began to spread across other branches, clients loved her honesty and dedication. But inside her own branch, she was trapped in a silent war. Mr. Okoro didn't hide his frustration. During meetings, he would deliberately ignore her contributions. When she spoke up, he cut her short. When others failed, he covered for them. When Adiz succeeded, he dismissed it like it meant nothing. One evening, as Adiz was packing her bag to leave, she got a message from him. "See me in the conference room. Alone." Her heart pounded. She almost ignored it, but curiosity and fear dragged her feet there. The room was dim, with only one light on. Mr. Okoro sat at the head of the long table, his suit jacket off, his tie loosened. "Adiz," he said softly, gesturing for her to sit. She hesitated. "You're a star," he continued. "But in this bank, stars don't rise by light alone. They rise by favor." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "You're too beautiful to waste your time waiting for natural promotions. I can make you a manager in 1 year. But you must understand, this is not charity." Adiz's stomach churned. She felt the walls closing in. "Sir," she whispered, "all I ask is fairness. I don't need favors. Just give me what I earn." His smile vanished. He stood, walked around the table, and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't know how this game is played, Adiz. If you refuse, don't blame me when the bank forgets you." She jerked away, grabbed her bag, and ran out before tears betrayed her. That night, she couldn't sleep. His words echoed in her head, "Don't blame me when the bank forgets you." And true to his warning, the forgetting began. The next few months were torture. Adiz worked harder than ever, but Mr. Okoro made sure her efforts never saw daylight. Clients she brought in were reassigned to others. Reports she submitted were lost. Projects she led were handed over to someone else at the last minute. One afternoon, she walked into the office and found her desk moved from the front to a corner near the photocopier. It was humiliating. Chioma, her only close friend, pulled her aside. "Ada, open your eyes. Do you think the others don't see what's going on? Look at Beezy, do you think she's smarter than you? She simply plays the game. That's how she's now a senior officer, driving a brand new car." Adiz shook her head. "Chioma, I can't sell my soul for a title." Chioma sighed. "Then prepare for a long, bitter journey, my sister. Because in this bank, dignity is expensive." That week, Adiz's worst nightmare came true. Her name was excluded from a training program that was supposed to fast-track promotions. She had been recommended at first, but mysteriously dropped from the list. When she confronted HR, the officer shrugged. "It's from above. Sorry." Adiz walked back to her desk in a daze. She sat there staring at her computer screen, her vision blurred with tears. She felt betrayed not just by the system, but by life itself. Yet, something in her refused to break. She looked around at the other female bankers who were laughing, flashing new phones, new jewelry, moving up the ladder with ease. For a moment, her heart wavered. She thought, maybe I'm the foolish one. Maybe Chioma is right. Maybe survival demands sacrifice. But then she remembered her mother's wrinkled hands, her father's proud smile, their prayers for her. That memory became her anchor. She whispered to herself, I will not sell my soul. No matter what. The pressure didn't stop. In fact, it grew darker. One evening, as Adiz was about to leave, she was summoned again, this time not by Mr. Okoro, but by a regional director, Mr. Dyke, who happened to be visiting the branch. He had heard of her brilliance, he said. He wanted to mentor her. Her heart sank. She already knew what mentorship meant in their language. When she entered his office, he smiled warmly. Adiz, you are exactly the kind of woman this bank needs. Intelligent, hardworking, beautiful. You have potential for greatness. Do you know why many women don't make it far in this bank? They lack the wisdom to seize opportunities. She kept silent, her palms sweating. Listen, he continued, lowering his voice, with me on your side, you can rise faster than you ever dreamed. But loyalty has its price. You understand? Adiz stood frozen. The walls seemed to close in again. This wasn't just her branch manager anymore, this was a regional director. If she said no, what would happen to her career? She forced a smile, bowed slightly, and murmured, "Thank you, sir. I will think about it." As she walked out, her knees almost gave way. That night, in her tiny apartment, she collapsed on her bed and wept. She wept for her dreams, for her wasted efforts, for the cruel game that mocked her values. She screamed into her pillow until her voice broke. She felt trapped between two prisons, compromise and stagnation. And for the first time, Adiz began to wonder if her principles were worth the pain. The bank had become a cage. Every corner whispered things Adiz didn't want to hear. Colleagues who once admired her began to mock her behind her back. She's still forming holy, one sneered. She thinks hard work will take her anywhere, another laughed. She doesn't know that here, your body is your certificate. The words cut Adiz like glass, but she kept her head high. Then came the cruelest blow. One morning, she arrived at work to find a note on her desk. It was written in bold letters. Promotion is not for virgins of conscience. Her heart sank. Her hands trembled as she stuffed the note into her bag, afraid anyone would see. That evening, she met Chioma at a small eatery. She tried to act strong, but tears betrayed her. Chioma, I don't know how much longer I can take this, she whispered. Chioma leaned closer. Ada, listen to me. The bank is a jungle. If you want to survive, you must play like the lions. If not, you will remain prey forever. Adiz wiped her tears. Then let me remain prey. I cannot sell my soul. But as she said those words, her voice cracked. For the first time, she wasn't sure she believed herself anymore. It was a Friday evening. The office was almost empty when Adiz's phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Dyke, the regional director. Dinner. Oriental Hotel. 8 p.m. This is not a request. Her chest tightened. She knew what it meant. Refusing would mean career suicide. Accepting, she couldn't even imagine it. She sat frozen at her desk long after others had left. Finally, she packed her bag and went home. At 7:45 p.m., she stood in front of her mirror. Her black gown hung neatly on her slim frame. She had applied light makeup, but her eyes looked hollow. She whispered to her reflection, God, forgive me. I don't know what else to do. At 8:15 p.m., she walked into the lavish hotel restaurant. The golden chandeliers sparkled above her head. The smell of expensive perfume filled the air. Mr. Dyke was already there, smiling like a man who had conquered a city. Adiz, he said warmly, standing to pull her chair. You look radiant. Throughout dinner, he flattered her, spoke about her future, and painted a picture of her as the next big name in the bank. But every sentence dripped with unspoken conditions. Finally, he leaned closer. The car outside is yours. The apartment in Lekki, yours. And the manager's seat, already waiting. But loyalty first. His hand brushed hers. Adiz's heart pounded. Her throat dried. She forced a smile, stood slowly, and whispered, I need to use the restroom. Inside the restroom, she locked the door and burst into tears. She slid to the floor, her body shaking. She felt like a lamb surrounded by wolves. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she whispered, "Adiz, is this what you studied for? Is this the price of your father's prayers?" Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Dyke. "Your decision tonight will determine the rest of your career." Adiz didn't return to the table. Instead, she walked out of the hotel. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing like a battle drum. Outside, she gulped the night air like a drowning woman. She hailed a cab, climbed in, and whispered, "Take me home." Her phone rang. It was Dyke. She ignored it. Another call. Then another. She finally switched off her phone, trembling. At home, she collapsed on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She knew what she had done. She had just declared war against powerful men. And the war started the very next week. Her targets were doubled, impossible to meet. Clients she had worked hard to secure were mysteriously reassigned. Rumors spread that she was arrogant and hard to manage. One afternoon, she was summoned by Mr. Okoro. He didn't bother to hide his anger. "You think you can embarrass my boss and survive in this bank? You will regret this, Adiz." Her heart pounded, but she held her ground. "Sir, I only want to do my job." He laughed coldly. "Job? You don't have a job anymore. You are finished." Adiz walked out, her legs shaking. But deep inside, a fire burned. She whispered to herself, "If this is war, then I will fight with everything I have." And so began the darkest chapter of her journey, one that would test not just her career, but her very soul. The following Monday, the office felt like a battlefield. Only this time, the enemies weren't outside, they were her colleagues, her bosses, even the very system she worked for. The first blow landed when she logged into her system. Her client list gone. All the accounts she had worked tirelessly to build were mysteriously reassigned to other officers. She rushed to the operations desk. "Excuse me, what happened to my portfolio?" The officer barely looked at her. "Management directive." She felt her throat tighten. "But why?" "Ask upstairs," he replied coldly. Upstairs, Mr. Okoro didn't hide his smirk. "You wanted fairness, right? This is fairness. Everyone gets a chance." Adiz walked out of his office, her chest burning. She sat at her empty desk, staring at the blank screen. Around her, whispers floated. She offended the big men. She'll soon resign. Poor girl. Too stubborn for her own good. Each word pierced her, but she clenched her fists under the table. "I will not quit," she whispered to herself. "I will not give them that satisfaction." But the war had only just begun. That evening, Adiz met Chioma at their usual spot. She poured her heart out, her voice shaking. "Chioma, they've taken everything from me. I feel like I'm drowning." Chioma sighed and held her hand. "Ada, I told you before, this place is not for saints. Sometimes, you must bend to survive." Adiz shook her head. "No. I cannot." Chioma looked at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You're stronger than me. I envy you." For the first time in weeks, Adiz felt comfort. She thought at least she had one person in her corner. But the next morning, her world shattered. Walking into the office, she froze. On the notice board, the promotion list was pinned. And there, smiling proudly at the top of the list, was Chioma's name. Not just promoted. Transferred to head a new unit in another branch. Adiz's heart broke. She stumbled back, tears stinging her eyes. She thought of their late-night talks, their shared laughter, their promises of "we rise together." And now, Chioma had chosen the easy road. Later that day, she confronted her. "Chioma, why didn't you tell me?" Chioma's eyes dropped. "Ada, I couldn't wait forever. I'm tired of struggling. I chose my future." Adiz stared at her friend, her lips trembling. "So this is it? You sold your soul for a title?" Chioma looked away. Don't judge me, Ada. You think dignity pays bills? You think it feeds family? Survival first. Adiz walked away, her heart bleeding. For the first time, she felt truly alone. The more Adiz resisted, the harder the bank system pressed against her. She was given impossible sales targets, figures no human could reach. Files were dumped on her desk deliberately late, setting her up for failure. But the cruelest trap came one Friday evening. She was asked to deliver a sensitive file to a high-ranking executive at his hotel suite. It's urgent, the secretary said. He needs it tonight. Something about it felt wrong. But refusing would mean insubordination. So she went. When she entered the suite, the executive was waiting not in a suit, but in a robe. The lights were dim. Soft music played in the background. Her stomach knotted. Ah, Adiz, he said warmly. You brought the file. Good. He took it from her hand, dropped it on the table without even opening it, then poured 2 glasses of wine. Sit down. Relax. This job is stressful, isn't it? She froze. Sir, I really must be going. He smiled. Not so fast. You know, many women would die for this opportunity. You're lucky I even noticed you. He took a step closer. Adiz's pulse raced. She backed away, her hands shaking. Sir, please, I can't. Suddenly, the door opened. 2 other senior managers walked in, laughing. One of them said, "Ah, so this is the girl." She finally agreed? Adiz's blood ran cold. She realized this was not just a casual dinner, it was a setup. A trap designed to corner her, to break her last defense. In that moment, she had to decide, fight back, or lose everything. Adiz's body froze as the men closed in. The suite felt like a prison. Their laughter, the clinking of glasses, the faint sound of the music, it all blurred into a nightmare. Relax, one of them said. No one will ever know. This is the only way to fly in this bank. Adiz's chest heaved. Her mind raced. She thought of her father's proud eyes, her mother's sacrifices, her late nights of study. Was this how her story would end? No, she whispered. What? One of the men asked, stepping closer. Her voice rose, trembling but firm. I said no. She grabbed her handbag and bolted for the door. One of them reached out to block her, but adrenaline surged through her veins. She shoved him aside, yanked the door open, and ran down the hallway, her heels echoing like gunshots. Hotel guests turned their heads as she rushed past, tears streaming down her face. She didn't stop until she burst into the night air outside. She hailed the first cab she saw and collapsed inside, shaking uncontrollably. As the car sped away, she whispered, God, thank you. But what will happen to me now? She knew the truth, powerful men did not forgive humiliation. They would come for her career and maybe even her life. By Monday morning, rumors spread like wildfire. Colleagues whispered that Adiz had been caught misbehaving with senior executives at a hotel. Others claimed she was desperate for promotion and willing to do anything. The story twisted until she became the villain. At noon, she was summoned by HR. Sitting across from the officer, she felt her world crashing. Miss Adiz, the officer began coldly, your conduct has been called into question. Senior management has raised concerns about your attitude. Effective immediately, you are placed on suspension pending investigation. Adiz's ears rang. Suspension? For what? I've done nothing wrong. The officer adjusted his glasses. It is beyond my power. You'll receive a letter. Please clear your desk. She staggered out of the office, her legs numb. Around her, eyes followed, some mocking, some pitying. At her desk, she packed her few belongings into a small box. Her photo frame, a picture of her and her parents, stared back at her like a cruel reminder. As she walked out of the bank that day, people whispered. She held her head high, but inside, she was shattered. That night, she sat in her dark apartment, staring at the ceiling. Everything she had worked for was gone. Her dreams, her pride, her dignity, stripped in one cruel stroke. For the first time, Adiz whispered, "Maybe I should have just given in. Maybe I was wrong to fight." Her tears flowed freely. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered back, "No, Adiz. You were not wrong. The fight has only begun." Days turned into weeks. Adiz's suspension dragged on, her name stained, her hope dim. She avoided calls from family, ashamed to tell them the truth. Then, one morning, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. "Hello," she answered weakly. "Is this Miss Adiz?" a male voice asked. "Yes. This is Mr. Kalu from the Financial Times. I've been following reports about Unity Trust Bank. I believe you have a story to tell, one that could change everything." Adiz's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I mean corruption, harassment, abuse of power," he said firmly. "You're not the first woman this has happened to. But you can be the first to speak. If you're willing." Adiz froze. Fear and hope wrestled in her chest. Speaking out meant war. It meant risking everything, her safety, her family's peace. But it also meant truth. She looked at the photo of her parents on her table. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, "Education is your ticket out of poverty, my daughter." Her mother's voice followed, "One day, you will stand where I never stood." Adiz wiped her tears. Her voice was shaky but resolute. "Mr. Kalu. I'm ready to tell my story." Adiz sat across from Mr. Kalu in a quiet cafe tucked away in a corner of the city. Her palms were sweaty, her heart beating like a drum. He placed a small recorder on the table. "Whenever you're ready." For a moment, Adiz hesitated. What if this was a trap? What if the bank found out? What if her parents became targets? But then she remembered the humiliation in that hotel room. The lies whispered in the office corridors. The suspension letter that destroyed her hard work. Her anger burned hotter than her fear. She took a deep breath. "My name is Adiz," she began. "And I am a banker at Unity Trust Bank. This is what they do to women like me." For the next 2 hours, she poured her heart out. She told him about the secret parties, the hotel suites, the whispered deals. About how promotions were sold for bodies instead of merit. She told him about the threats, the rumors, and the day they tried to break her. "Mr. Kalu listened, scribbling notes, his eyes narrowing with determination. When she finished, he leaned forward. "Adiz, this story will shake the system. But once it's out, they won't stop coming for you. Are you prepared for that?" Her throat tightened, but she nodded. "I've already lost everything. I have nothing left to fear." The story broke a week later. Headlines screamed across social media and newspapers. Unity Trust Bank executives exposed in exploitation scandal. Adiz's name was there, bold and unshaken. Her face, her words, her testimony. The internet erupted. Some praised her courage. Others mocked her, calling her bitter, jealous, or a liar. Influencers debated her case, radio stations dissected every detail. At the bank's headquarters, panic spread like wildfire. Emergency board meetings were called. Executives barked orders, lawyers scribbled statements, PR teams scrambled to clean the mess. Then came the phone call. Adiz was at home when her phone rang. The voice on the other end was cold, threatening. "You've made a mistake, Adiz. Do you think you can destroy us and walk away alive? Watch your back." Her blood froze. She dropped the phone, her heart pounding. That night, she barely slept. Shadows seemed to move in her apartment. Every noise made her jump. But even in her fear, a strange fire burned in her heart. She had spoken her truth, and the world could not unhear it. The retaliation was swift. First, she received a legal notice accusing her of defamation. Then came the online smear campaign, fake pictures, fabricated stories about her personal life, rumors that she was a mistress of a rival bank executive. Her friends stopped picking her calls. Even her neighbors whispered when she walked past. One evening, as she returned home, she noticed a black car parked across the street. Two men sat inside, watching. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with her keys, rushing into her apartment. Her phone buzzed with a message, "We see you. Next time, you won't be so lucky." Adiz sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. She thought of giving up, of leaving the city, of disappearing. But then, a knock came at her door. She froze. Her heart hammered. Slowly, she opened the door, and there stood Mr. Kalu. "I knew they would come after you," he said firmly. "But you're not alone. Others are ready to speak. We'll fight this together." Adiz's eyes widened. "Others?" "Yes," he nodded. "And when their voices join yours, not even the bank's power will be enough to silence the truth." For the first time in weeks, Adiz felt hope flicker again. The pressure on Unity Trust Bank reached boiling point. More women began to speak out, their voices trembling but strong. Anonymous testimonies flooded the media. Stories that mirrored Adiz's pain, of promotions tied to shame, of careers destroyed, of dreams buried in silence. The government launched an investigation. Television stations aired heated debates. Protesters gathered in front of the bank's headquarters, holding placards that read, "Respect women. Not their bodies. Merit, not manipulation." Inside the boardroom, executives sat pale and restless. Mr. Okafor, Adiz's former boss, shouted angrily, veins bulging on his neck. "This girl has ruined everything. If she had kept quiet." "Enough," barked the chairman. "We can no longer silence this. Too many voices have joined her. If we don't act, the whole bank will collapse." Meanwhile, Adiz walked through the streets in disguise, her hoodie pulled low. She saw her own face on posters and newspapers. Some people looked at her with admiration. Others with suspicion. That night, another threat came, but this time, not to her. Her younger brother, Chaik, returned from school pale and trembling. "Sis," he whispered. "A man stopped me on the road. He said if you don't shut your mouth, they'll come for me next." Adiz's heart shattered. She hugged him tightly, tears wetting his shirt. Fear clawed at her, but so did fire. "No," she whispered fiercely. "They will not break us. Not anymore." She called Mr. Kalu. "It's time," she said. "We release everything." The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the seats, cameras clicked non-stop, and the nation held its breath. Adiz sat in the witness stand, her voice steady as she gave her testimony. Executives sat across the room, their lawyers whispering frantically. Evidence poured in: hotel receipts, recorded calls, testimonies from other women, financial records showing hush money transfers. The scandal was undeniable. At one point, Mr. Okafor locked eyes with Adiz. His stare was cold, venomous. But she did not look away. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. The judge's voice echoed across the courtroom. "After reviewing the evidence, this court finds the accused guilty of gross misconduct, abuse of power, and violation of workplace ethics. They are hereby dismissed from their positions and barred from holding executive roles in any financial institution." Gasps filled the room. Some executives slumped in shame. Others covered their faces. Outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. Reporters swarmed Adiz, microphones flashing. "Miss Adiz, how do you feel? Do you regret speaking out?" She looked into the cameras, her voice firm and emotional. "I spoke out because silence was killing us. I lost my job, my friends, my peace, but I could not lose my soul. If one girl, just one, can now walk into a bank and know her hard work will speak louder than her body, then everything I suffered was worth it." Tears welled in her eyes. The crowd clapped. Some women cried. That night, as she sat quietly by her window, Adiz whispered a prayer. Not for herself, but for every woman who had once been broken, silenced, or shamed. She knew the scars would remain. The threats might never fully end. But the truth was out. And the truth could not be buried. For the first time in a long time, Adiz smiled. Not because the fight was over, but because she had become a flame that others could follow. And in that moment, she realized she had not just survived. She had changed the story. And so, Ada's story comes to an end. A young woman who only wanted a seat at the table, paid with pieces of her soul. She climbed the ladder, but every step came with a scar. Her story is not just hers, it is the story of countless women, caught between ambition and dignity, success and sacrifice. Some win. Some lose. But none walk away unchanged. Remember this, true promotion comes not from men, but from the one who sees all, even in the hidden places. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let it spark conversations. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Nightfall Tales by Wura for more stories that pierce the heart and stir the soul. Until we meet again, good night, and remember, every choice has a price.